Good evening. Welcome to the May 9th Planning and Zoning meeting. If you can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Shannon, roll call.
Fleming,
Here.
Ingalls,
Here.
Lutrip,
Here.
Mandel,
Here.
Messina,
Here.
Rumpler, Ward.
Okay. Before we start, I'd like to introduce our newest commissioner, Brianna. Is that right? Mandel. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
For a long term, I hope. Okay. We need approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of minutes of March 28th and April 11th.
Okay, I have approval.
I'll second.
You have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we need to do move minutes for the April 11th as well, or is that for both of them?
I think your motion covered both because you said the
Okay.
minutes, but you can clarify that.
Okay. Tonight we have elections. Decided to move on to do other things in the city and stuff. So tonight we'll elect a new chair and a new vice chair. So I asked anyone on the commission to mention someone that they would like to either be the chair at this time.
Mr. Vice Chairman, in recognition of his vast knowledge, many years of experience on this commission, and proven skill as Vice Chairman, I enthusiastically nominate Tom Messina to serve as the Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Inasmuch as I think that's an excellent motion, I would be privileged to second it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we have a nomination and a first and second. All in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you, and I hope I can do as good a job as Brad and other chairs on this commission. Now we need a nomination for vice chair. If someone please make a nomination, if so be.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate John Ingalls for vice chair.
I have a nomination. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. I appreciate that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. John, congratulations. Thank you. But you still stay down at that end of the table.
I like it down here, thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Well, that's taken care of. Any public comments of anyone that has something to say besides what we have on the agenda tonight? Does it look like it? Staff, have any comments?
I do. I have several items. First of all, I wanted to welcome our newest commissioner, Brennan Mandel. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Thank you for being willing to serve. And also wanted to just let you know that the mayor and several of you were actually there, so letting kind of the community know that our former chairman, Brad Jordan, was thanked by the mayor and council at the last council meeting with a nice plaque honoring him for 30 years of service, which was great. So we are very appreciative for him. We have not set the date for when the vacation rental ordinance will go forward to council. We're looking at probably the second meeting in June, so just wanted to keep you apprised of that. And we are still working on that neighborhood compatibility ordinance, some of the language and some of those virtual tent examples that you had asked us to do. So we'll let you know when that is coming forward as well, and we'll also keep the community up to date on both of those. And so far, the June items, we're looking at bringing forward, we've been working with a consultant out of Colorado on updating our wireless communications ordinance. And so we have sent out the draft ordinance to the providers and their consultants for some initial feedback. And we're looking at bringing that forward to you in June for your review. And if you like it, then if you want to move it on to City Council, it addresses some of the newer technologies, the small cell technologies, and so we thought it was very important to address that at this time, because that seems to be the new way the providers are going. And then there will also be a zone change request. And then if I can get your quick feedback, I know the whole commission's not here, so we'll just kind of get a little bit of sense on the work plan. I did tally all your votes, and so I'll show you a slide of kind of how the rankings look, and if you guys have any feedback or concerns with how the order of those, let me know, because I'm going to be sharing that information with City Council. So that is all. Let me put on that slide, and then if you guys want to discuss the projects.
Sure.
So here's the slide. As I stated kind of at the top, it looked like there was kind of some people voted and some people didn't for the vacation rental ordinance and the neighborhood compatibility, but I believe consensus was keep working on those because we're so far along. And then the rankings were for the other ones. So as you can see, the tallies are on the right side, and 10 was the highest where it was top priority, and then 1 was the lowest. So I only did kind of the top ranked projects and with the average scoring of those items. Does it seem generally like what you guys think? Okay, great, perfect. Well, thank you.
Regarding the comprehensive plan update, are we looking at trying to start that at any particular time, or is it just the way it is right now?
Well, so this work plan will be going forward to City Council to have them actually choose the top priority projects as well, but I want to share your rankings with them. We had recently the strategic planning workshop for the budget and the planning, and then the City Council did also agree that the comprehensive plan was very important. So I would anticipate that sometime this year we'll at least kind of kick off that process, and we'll see if that will involve any assistance from an outside party, maybe bringing in a consultant for part of it, or if it's going to be in-house. And then we'll absolutely be enlisting planning commission members to help us
Sure.
kind of organize that and form subcommittees.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you. That's all.
Is it? Okay, any staff not staff comments, I'm sorry. Public hearings, we have 2 tonight. There's a sign-up sheet for both of them. If you wish to sign up, please do so, and then at the time you can come up and give you a view on that particular item at that time. The first one is a proposal for a wireless communications special use permit in a C17L. It's item number SP4-17. Sean?
Thank you. All right. So Tom just explained, there's a request. It's a special use permit request to allow a 70-foot cell phone tower in a C17L zone. Currently, it would be located at 3850 North Ramsey. It's in conjunction with the existing coffee stand that's on the site already. And the requested use is classified under city code as civic activity, essential service above ground. Legal notice was provided. It was placed in the paper, and everybody within 300 feet of the site had been notified. So here's a location map. This should help everybody visualize where the request is. So we have Kathleen Avenue here and Ramsey Road north to south here. The request is this property right here. This should be fairly familiar to everyone but Ms. Mendel. The request that we heard last month for a clarification was for this property down here for their existing special use. So we're talking about a very similar area. Here's an oblique view of the property, and where this blue star is where the location is proposed for the cell tower. Here's the coffee stand as it sits right now on the subject parcel. So there are 3 findings that need to be made for a special use permit. They are right here, B8A, B, and C, and I'll go through those right now. So finding B8A is that the proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The subject property is currently within the city limits. It is found in the area of Ramsey Woodland, and the land use designation is stable established. This is the definition of stable established, which you can also find inside of your staff report. Comprehensive plan objectives. I didn't list out the definitions of each because it would have taken about 3.5 slides to do so, but these are the objectives that are provided in your staff report. There's also the Ramsey Woodland today, Ramsey Woodland tomorrow description, as well as the characteristics of Ramsey Woodland neighborhoods in the future, which these are here. You can take note that the one that relates most to this request is this bullet point here, which is neighborhood service nodes where appropriate. The next finding is B8B, is that the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. So as shown in the previous slides, the property is pretty flat. There is quite a bit of vacant land surrounding the requested area. There's commercial uses directly north as well as across the street to the north. To the east are city facilities, street department, water department, and fire department. And to the south is an apartment complex. So these are some pictures of the site, ground level. Recently went out there. I put this blue star here to help everyone visualize where the request is. If you look really closely, there's these little wooden stakes out here that were placed where the site would be located. Here's another view, and this is pretty close to where I took that first picture, except I turned around and faced south. You can see here that there's that buffer yard, which was discussed at the last hearing, as well as the apartment buildings that lie behind that buffer. And then this is a little further north, and taking a look at the site in context with the coffee stand that is located on the site. Here's the proposed site plan. You can see here in red is the extent of the parcel that we are discussing, and then in yellow here is the actual site with the landscaping around it, and then the blue in the center would be the physical pole that would rise up to 70 feet tall. And here again is that up close so that you can visualize it. Here's an elevation of the tower. They have requested a 70-foot height. Actually, if you have read your staff report, and I'm going to just say this for the record, but they had actually come in a month earlier with a request for a 60-foot tall pole. And staff, personally, I called and asked them, would they entertain going up a little bit more so that we could co-locate and have another carrier on the pole to hopefully prevent another pole in the future. So they took that under advisement and asked the provider. They added 10 foot to the pole to allow for another carrier on the pole and still maintain the lower heights. Just an FYI, the last pole that we had approved is the one off of Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive that they had moved off of 23rd there. That one, for reference, is 120 feet tall, so it's a more substantial height. Here's their proposed landscape buffer. The green I had placed in there just so it can be seen a little bit better on the screen, and which are shrubs that are surrounding the site. It's also good to note, as well as with this development application, we will be looking at providing street trees if they're not there at the time of permit. Here is a zoning map. So as stated, the site is C17L with a special use permit on it. This area here is split zoning between R12 and C17L. To the north is commercial and neighborhood commercial. R8 and even further east across the or west across the Prairie Trail is single-family detached homes. The land use map is fairly similar, except for we have some vacant areas in this kind of lighter tan color. Multifamily. Let's see, we have the Civic for the city here. There's a church on this corner, school over here, and some manufactured homes as well. So last but not least is the final finding, which is the location design. Actually, there is actually one more finding with cell phone towers, so before I speak incorrectly, I'll just fix that. The location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. We had pulled and requested comments from our different departments, engineering, streets, water, fire, and parks and wastewater. Most of them have replied. Each department has indicated that there's adequate public facilities that are available to the site, and nobody put an objection to the special use permit as proposed, although there is requested conditions. So this is that additional finding here, which is in addition to our regular findings, is that no new wireless communication support towers may be constructed within 1 mile of an existing support tower unless it can be demonstrated to the satisfaction of our board that the existing support tower is not available for co-location of an additional wireless communication facility, or that its specific location does not satisfy the operational requirements of the applicant. So when I ran my GIS mapping system, I found that the requested site is actually about 300 feet away from being at the very edge of that 1 mile radius. And so it does fall within that 1 mile area. However, the applicant did provide, and it's at the end of the staff report, some information regarding that in their request, as well as a coverage map before and after. I'm not sure if you guys have had the opportunity to see that. We've been working on the wireless ordinance, as Hillary had mentioned in the beginning of this meeting, and what has been relayed to us by multiple carriers is it's not so much the coverage anymore that is the issue for cell phone towers. There's generally really good coverage. The issue that we're seeing now is that it's the amount of data that these cell phone towers can provide. And so they are building them so that they can increase the data because everybody wants to watch the Zags game on their cell phone. So that is, I guess, what I understood why their request is closer than the 1 mile. And so just wanted to point that out. So here is the map right here. As you can see, this blue circle denotes what that new 1 mile radius would be if this is approved. It's probably pretty important to also tell you that the tower that exists right now within 1 mile is the one off of Appleway just north of the freeway by the public golf course, and that is the one that is the closest. So when you zoom in and you look carefully at the request location, there's about 350 feet from where the location is to the edge of that 1 mile radius. So it's really close. If they were across across the Kathleen intersection there, they would have met the 1 mile requirement. All right. So proposed conditions. Planning has requested of the commission to make a finding or make a condition for a monopine or another design that Planning Commission would approve tonight if the applicant has some other designs to take a look at, which would achieve a stealth look to the tower. Our second one is the project must adhere to the site and landscaping plans as they have proposed. And then there's a couple of fire department requirements, is that the access road must be able to carry 75,000 pounds for emergency vehicles, and they need a maintenance plan to deal with snow, and it also needs to be signed no parking fire lane. So the Planning Commission, as a condition of approval, may establish reasonable requirements or conditions that may mitigate the impacts to the site, and be specific if you're going to add anything. And with that, that'll conclude my staff report. Planning Commission must consider this request and make findings to approve with conditions, deny, or deny without prejudice. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
I've got a question, Sean.
Sure.
I think last meeting, we had a hearing on, I think there was the triangle piece next to it. Was this piece in that triangle piece or not?
It's not in the triangle piece, however, it is part of that request as a whole, because the special use permit that we looked at was the entire corner right there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then I remember that they were going to have individual buildings on the site. Now, will there be able to still put a building on the site, or does this tower take that place of that building?
There are two different sites that are adjacent. You want to maybe pull up one of your maps? I don't know which one might show it the most clearly, but this would not restrict that. So this is just north, correct, Sean?
Correct.
Of that other parcel.
Of the
So-
triangle.
And there was nothing, we did review that special use permit, there was nothing restricting the cell tower from being in there, whereas the other one you did the interpretation on, it said no strip centers, and so that's why, when you looked at the two buildings, it was something you had to interpret. This one's a brand-new request that is, not restricted in the existing special use permit, and it is north of, you can see that on this map, kind of that portion of that triangular piece to the south.
Right here is the request tonight, and then the triangle right here was the request last month. This entire area right here was the request for the special use permit, although we just looked at this corner because that's what they were interested in developing at the time. It's also important to note that a cell phone tower is considered a facility and not really a structure. Nobody occupies it, and so it wouldn't be considered a building.
Okay.
But what restrictions come with that tower if we wanted to build an adjacent structure to it? Should the coffee shop go away, the drive-through? Is there a setback off of that tower that's inherent with that structure?
There is the separation between uses like that. We look to our building department to determine
Okay.
what the safety is, as well as fire department.
Okay.
And so they take a look at the type of construction and make sure that they're compatible. That's how that is done.
I can't imagine that drive-through is going to be in perpetuity. I mean, it's valuable land.
It's
The other
probably not the
things-
highest and best use.
Yeah, no. But what is the maintenance setup for that grassy area around the tower that, who actually maintains that space that's outside the fenced-in, treed-around box around the tower?
I would have to defer to the applicant for that question. It's required that front and side yards are landscaped as far as our city
Right.
code goes, but for maintenance, that's really up to the lessee and
Okay.
the owner.
But if one wanted to see what something like this would look like, I would assume it'd be very similar to the one that's on 23rd and Lake Coeur d'Alene Drive, that 120-foot one.
If you guys are interested in making a condition that it looks like a monopine.
No, the point being that it's right in an old motel, it's pretty close to the restaurant.
It is close.
And so forth, they're,
I know what
To
it looks
other
like. It's
uses,
half the
yeah.
height, though. It's a little less. than
this one
this.
is.
This is 70 as
70
opposed to
versus
120. So, yeah,
I think you'd,
considerably different scale.
I think you'd be complimented in making it a self-type tower. I think that's very, very prudent of us. And secondly, so we're going to do some study on wireless later on. So there may be technology that is coming out that we may want to consider in some fashion, some governmental fashion, that would be an alternate way of providing usage other than a lot of towers or high towers. I don't know if that's, that's part of the discussion. I don't know if that,
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I had that question while we were working on our draft wireless ordinance right now. Our consultant said that we are not allowed to dictate the technology. So we can control how it looks or where it's placed, but sometimes they need an additional tower because their other tower is serving 3G, for example, and having 3G, it's important that everybody that has a 3G phone still gets service. And so we can't dictate the actual technology.
but we do have some authority in the number of towers and their proximity to one another.
Yes, absolutely you do.
Okay, I'm not proposing we dictate technology, or, but I am, there's certain things that, we can somewhat guide.
Commissioner Lutrip, if I may, that is one of the things that this consultant is helping us do, is to make sure we do address the new technologies in the ordinance. So I think it's pretty thorough, so we'll
Good.
bring that forward to you, I think, next month.
Okay. Any other questions of Sean?
Thank you.
I guess the applicant's here. Hi, could you just
evening.
state your name and your address?
Jeff Smith. We've just moved offices, and I don't know what our new office address is in Georgetown, but I can look it up and send it along.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
just last week, actually.
I just want to swear you in and
Oh,
about to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
So the presentation that the Planning Department and the report has put together, I think fairly characterizes the scope of what we're proposing to do. I did the antenna search, and I thought we were outside the 1 mile radius. It looked to me from looking on Google Earth, we were right at 1 mile. But I think the policy on having them separated by a mile is well served by allowing this particular facility within 300 feet of being within 1 mile. Obviously, based on the propagation maps, you see the area we're trying to provide coverage to, and it is the area in and around where we're proposing to put the new facility. By way of background, when wireless carriers identify an area where they need to develop a new facility, they send us a map, people like me a map, and tell us what sort of height they need, geographic coordinates of approximately where it needs to be. And over a course of about 4 or 5 month period, I explored with property owners in and around that area possibility of locating a new facility, and I was only able to come to an agreement with Mr. Cross, who's the property owner who's here today. I'd like to thank the Planning Department for recommending a 70-foot rather than a 60-foot tower for purposes of co-location. Someone had mentioned the proliferation of towers. Obviously, you have an interest in not having tower farms or more towers than are absolutely needed. It's pretty forward-thinking for the Planning Department to recommend increasing the height by 10 feet. It does make it more co-locatable, more likely that another carrier who needs to provide coverage in that area will propose to put its antennas on the proposed tower if it's approved. And that will serve to minimize the number of new towers in your community. Question was raised regarding maintenance of the landscaping. Verizon Wireless will maintain the landscaping around the facility. Mr. Cross, the property owner, maintains the grass area in and around the building, and it's been my experience from several visits out to the site that it is well maintained. The grass is kept low. It's not allowed to grow unreasonably, but Verizon would be responsible for maintaining the landscaping and would undertake to do so as part of their regular maintenance of the facility. A couple of other issues that were raised that I'd like to address one is the planting of trees in the landscaping strip in front of the building. Mr. Cross advised me a moment ago that one of the trees has fallen over and has been removed. So if there is and we had proposed to add one additional tree, so it looks like we're going to be required to add at least one more additional tree to fill in that area. The only problem I would point out is there are gas lines through that property that we had to work around for locating the wireless facility. And any imposition of a landscaping requirement, obviously I'd like it to be subject to feasibility, the ability to safely plant the tree. There is a recommendation that what we call a monopine or pine tree design be employed. Wireless carriers, Verizon included, will use a monopine design when it's required. They are slightly more expensive than a traditional wireless facility. They're harder to work with because of the faux branches and trees, so they create some obstacles that aren't ideal. I'd offer, as an alternative to what we call a monopine design, is painting the tower and the antennas green, so that as it sits with the trees in the background, it blends to a certain extent. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Some people are attracted to the monopine design because it does provide some concealment. Others look at it and think they don't look natural. But we're willing to build a monopine if that's absolutely required. But do keep in mind, I'd ask you to keep in mind that it does impact the flexibility that the carriers have in mounting their antennas, because they've got to work around that stuff. And then I think the planning department's done an excellent job detailing the findings that have to be made, and they've offered a set of proposed findings, B1 through B7, seem pretty straightforward. The notice, as I understand, was sent out. Posting did take place. The zoning is what it's represented to be. So that, I guess we move on to the design criteria for consideration. And I'd offer that, this is proposed in a commercial area, largely commercial area, in and along Ramsey Road, which is becoming getting increasing use over the 2 decades since I moved out here. And a lot of commercial development in and around there. Obviously, I agree that in the long run, that coffee stand will likely go away. There'll probably be some greater use made of the property. It's my experience that their reconstruction or redevelopment in and around a wireless facility, there is no obstacle to that. Commercial properties and residential properties cohabitate one with another with great regularity. There shouldn't be, I can think of no limitation. There's no limitation I'm aware of that would prevent some sort of redevelopment. And certainly, Verizon wouldn't be looking to lock up a piece of property and deprive the property owner of the use of the rest of the property. I think with that, I would just open up the discussion for questions. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about site selection, wireless carriers' requirements, small cells, and the future of what the facilities are going to look like. It's very forward-thinking that you're considering small cells as part of your code rewrite. I'm working with half a dozen municipalities on the other side of the Cascades, and they are way behind in Washington in addressing small cells, and they are something that is quickly on its way, and they'll be in Coeur d'Alene very soon, as they will in most metropolitan areas, large and small.
Okay, thanks. Questions? As far as the tower looking like a pine tree, and one of the commissioners mentioned the one on, what was that, Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive, and actually by that motel and the restaurant that's right there. Is that something that you're planning to do? Because this is in a busy intersection area, a lot of traffic, 70-foot tall pole, let's call it, with some antennas on top. It's going to be quite noticeable there, and especially since all the land is vacant and there's not much of anything around there. And I understand your concerns, it costs more and maybe it affects some of the communications or whatever. But is that the design, hopefully, you're planning to do similar to that one? Are you familiar with the one that is on Lakeshore by that motel that is there?
I've not noticed it. I haven't driven by that area in years. But they are similar in design. So whatever, if a condition of approval is that we do a monopine, they'll select something probably similar to what's there. I don't know how long that facility's been there, but I can tell you, over
It's,
the,
excuse me, it's only been there about 2 years.
Okay.
Because it was moved from close to the freeway over there, and I remember the hearing on that, and they actually had some designs showing this is what it was going to look like, because there was some concerns about it, because it's closer to a neighborhood. You're surrounded more by commercial, but definitely more traffic and eyesight.
Right.
That's my concern, is what is it going to look like?
yeah, so let me try to address that. One of the reasons I asked about the age of that facility is that over the past 15 or 20 years, the carriers and their suppliers have gotten much better at their concealment technology. The product that they deploy is better. If we were looking at a monopine 15 years ago, they did not look as good as they look now. So not knowing specifically what's out there, but I suspect it's state-of-the-art, and it can be made to look like that if
I
necessary.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and I don't want to mislead you. It's not that the technology won't work because of it's just, it requires more effort to orient the antennas so that they're missing branches, because RF signal and cell phone signals are line of sight. So if there's
Yeah.
something in front of the antenna, it will reflect back and not propagate the signal. So they have to be just a little more clever. It's not something they can't overcome. I don't
I
want to
appreciate
mislead you.
that. John?
Well, I was just going to add to that, and I agree with you, Chairman, that, the cell tower that you're referring to on the east end of town that used to be by the freeway was like the graphic in the packet. It was kind of ugly, frankly. And I think we've heard up here, and we've gotten a lot of compliments, that, the replacement, the monopine, people are pretty happy with that, There's probably going to be more cell phone towers in this town, and I think the monopine, and to ask, and I think I heard you say it's slightly more expensive, I think planning has worked with you and suggested a taller tower to help you a little. You help us here, we help you there, kind of a deal. And to drill down, I guess, a little bit on the conditions, there's 5 of them. I assume you've reviewed those, and one of the conditions is that it be a monopine. So if we adopt the 5 conditions, you can live with that.
I vetted it with Verizon in advance of the hearing, and it is something that they can make work in this application. And I think it's generally true that all the carriers can make use of that design. It is a little more expensive, it adds cost up front, but your guys' job is to protect your community and the appearance of your community. And Verizon wants to be a good neighbor and, conduct its business in harmony with what you're trying to do with your community. So I'm obligated, though, to point out the cost. I would be remiss, and Verizon would not be happy that I didn't at least mention that there are some obstacles that they have to overcome, but it is something that they expect it to be imposed as a condition. I'll put it that way.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I have one person to sign up, Robert Cross. He's in favor. Do you wish to testify or not, or you check the box?
I'm just a landowner.
Okay.
One thing,
Oh,
I need to, if I say,
Yeah, you need to come up if you want to. Thank you. And Robert, you can just state your name and address, and I'll swear you in.
Robert Cross, 11807 South Quail Creek Lane in Spokane.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I just had one quick one. When you were mentioning the possibility of future development, the coffee stand disappearing and other development happening, the chances of anything else happening there are awfully remote. If you go out there, there's a natural gas line that runs just south of the espresso stand. That was one of the drawbacks to that property when we purchased it as a property owner, because the natural gas line company has a protected, I believe, I'm going by memory here, a number of years ago, but I think for 25 feet beyond that pipeline, nothing can be built over that. The only thing that can be done is paving or parking, but the chances of us as a property owner tearing down that stand and, you know, putting some wide building there is never gonna happen. The pipeline would cut that all off. It almost cuts the property in half. So the size of the building that's there now, as far as width on Ramsey Road, is just about as big as you can possibly set there. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
That helps.
Appreciate it. That's it for public testimony. The applicant can talk. Did you? I'd like to speak. Okay, if you just want to.
We'll sign you up here.
Hi, my name is John Lee. I live at 1141 West Willow Lake Loop here in Coeur d'Alene. Yes, sir.
Just swear.
Swear.
Do you
I
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
truth.
nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God, yes.
Thank you.
I'm a resident here in Coeur d'Alene. I also own the Fedora Pub and Grill. And I just want to let you know that we are strongly against this due to the appeal that it'll have for the area, for other developments coming in around us. We feel that it's going to hinder development in that area. I appeal to on the street. You folks keep referring to the cell tower down by Michael D's Eatery. That actually blends in quite well because there's other natural trees in that area, so it does blend in quite well. This is actually going to stand out in a field by itself. It's going to be a beacon that's going to be noticeable. I feel it's going to be an eyesore for our area. I feel it's going to deter if I choose to sell my property for a person to come in to look at it and for other developments in that area. We strongly are against it for these reasons. I hope you folks are also. Hope you take small business owners' thoughts and wishes into aspect of what it will do to that area. The banks, the schools, the businesses have built there with growth hopefully to come. And I feel that this will hinder and slow any growth that people might have for those lots around us. So any questions I can answer?
Okay. Appreciate your
But I
comments.
mean, I definitely, we're strongly against it, and I know other people in the area are also against it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The applicant come up.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the appearance issue and just briefly what, if any, impact it may or may not have on property values, which is all very speculative. We do know that increasingly homes are cutting the cord. Landlines are becoming a thing of the past. And I think it's now more than 60% of homes nationwide are served only by mobile phones, no landlines in the phones. And then looking to the future, we're proposing to put this in a commercial area. And looking to the future as 5G technology has started to be rolled out, we're looking at speeds of, I hear anywhere from 20 times to 50 times faster. And they're starting to talk about an internet of industry and those services being increasingly important to properties that are used for commercial purposes. It is something that is absolutely, as the city considers it, an essential service, especially moving forward. And that would apply to customers in restaurants in and around where the cell site is proposed to go. We've all been at restaurants or having a drink with a friend, and everyone has their phone out, and they're checking on the Mariners score, they're checking on the Gonzaga Bulldogs score. It's just something that, it's an expectation that we have access to wireless communications. And some of the literature is suggesting that even people who go to buy new residences, the first thing they check is to see if they've got wireless coverage to their homes, because they are increasingly using that as their only means of communication. But I think it's important to keep in mind that the land use code makes it a use that is possible in this commercial zone. The location was carefully considered. We've located at the back side of the property to the extent that we're able and still meet setbacks. There's a car wash on the corner which will partially screen the building or the tower from view from the rights of way. The trees in the front, landscaping trees in the front of the property along Ramsey will go to some measure to screen it from public view. Obviously, you can't make it invisible, but with a monopine design, there are trees that may not be adjacent to where we're proposing to go, but they are in the background, and that green will sort of blend in against the backdrop. So those are considerations I think that are important.
I've got a question for you. I know that staff mentioned that it had to be, what was that distance again from another cell tower?
1 mile.
1 mile. Given the location of this cell tower compared to some of the others, as I understand it, it's just kind of at the edge of that 1 mile?
Yes, if you look in the staff report, it's about 350 feet.
All right, so basically, is there any other place this could have gone in this general area, or is this it?
So when I started my comments a moment ago, I indicated that when a carrier like Verizon's identifies a need for a new facility, they provide us a latitude and longitude or a search area ring. And the RF engineers, in advance of starting to select properties as potential candidates, have modeled where they think they need to go to fill substantial gaps in service. And the intersection right at Ramsey and Kathleen, 2 properties to the north, 2 properties to the south, and then moving eastward, 2 properties in either direction were part of the search ring. It's becoming increasingly specific where they go, and that may trigger a conversation about small cell technology, which is coming. These small cell facilities won't eliminate the need for the large support structures. They'll work in conjunction with one another. We're going to continue to need both. But in this case, in this instance, as I said, the RF engineers are becoming increasingly specific because they've sort of built out the network in a lot of ways, and now we're running into capacity issues where there's so much traffic going through through an existing site that calls are dropped or data is not transmitted because of like a pipeline. There's only so much capacity through which to pass water or oil or whatever it is, in this instance, communications. The cell site nearly a mile away is way too far away. As I said, they have become increasingly specific about where they need to go. And in this case, if it weren't on this lot, it would have to be a lot right across the street. And in my application, I described having contacted all the property owners in the area to find a place where we can place this. And this is one of 2 places that it would have been feasible to put it, where we wouldn't be running into a pipeline issue because of the natural gas lines that run through the area. A couple of others are undeveloped parcels to the north, but the property owners weren't interested in tying up the property with a long-term lease. So it's essential that something be constructed in that location. They're out of options, and there is a gap in coverage in that area. And we think it's the least intrusive means to, particularly if there's a monopine design that disguises the facility, it's the least intrusive means to provide the coverage that they need to provide.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do anybody have any questions? No? All right, thanks. Okay, well, that closes public testimony. Discussion?
I have a
ahead,
quick
Pete.
question of staff. We're under some type of constraints, aren't we? We don't have the city or planning commission have unilateral authority to deny or approve cell towers. It has to be within certain conditions. Is not one of them being a mile apart? We just,
Yes, we're going to pull up the additional finding that has to be made for the cell towers, but it generally is that it's outside of that 1 mile radius, but there can be some give
within
and
the
take
1
for
mile
that.
radius,
Right.
but we can't arbitrarily say we only want 3 cell towers in the city of Coeur d'Alene.
We cannot do that, that is correct.
If you take a look at page 11 on your staff report, about 3/4 of the way down is 17.08.825 H2, and that is the language about what we're just speaking about.
And what?
That's the language we were just talking about the 1 mile radius and how they have to satisfy the planning commission that it would meet their needs as well as meet the city's needs.
It just, thank you.
Anybody entertaining a motion?
So my thinking here as a discussion is, this can get to be a kind of a NIMBY type of deal. I mean, nobody's really wild about a cell phone tower, but if we can try to disguise them a little bit, make them as attractive, if you will, looking as they can. Looking at that site plan and, some history we've had with that, there is gas easements through there just to the south of that site at an angle. You can see it from Sean's aerial view. You'll see there's high voltage distribution lines that diagonally go across and create that triangle. This is, of all places, if it's got to be somewhere within a property or two of that area, this is a site that makes a lot of sense because it is so constrained with other things. You got high voltage easement and high voltage lines that kind of scar up the appearance anyway. And, rather than go to that property, 2 properties north of Kathleen, I guess I'm saying, and put it there, I think it makes it some sense to put it in an area that already has a fair amount of quirks, if you will. So I think with their willingness to make it a monopine, I think that's a good balance. I think it addresses the comp plan, protection of neighborhoods in the spirit of things that, if it's not there, it could be in a spot that even would more be detrimental to, the views of people's residential neighborhoods and such. But so I think by being there, it protects Fairway Hills, Fairway Meadows, and those kind of places.
Yeah, comment again. It's not the ideal location. I certainly, and I understand John, the owner of your restaurant, and and I'm glad you came and spoke. But again, it's not the ideal location. My hope is that it would be camouflaged as best as it can, and hopefully, since we don't have a design to tie it into, that you can work with staff and take a ride down to the one that is by Michael Dees, and hopefully that would be something that would be there. I don't know how this vote's going to go, but if it does get approved, hopefully you take that in consideration, because my personal opinion is it is just there, and there's nothing around it. But again, it's up to the commissioners to decide which way this is going to go. So that's my opinion. So again, I ask, is anyone ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
This matter having come before the Planning Commission on May 9th, 2017, and there being present a person requesting approval of item SP 4-17, request for a wireless telecommunications special use permit for the C17L zoning district. The applicant is Verizon Wireless, Jeff Smith Rika Consulting. Location A ± 0.55 acre parcel west of Ramsey Road and south of the Kathleen Avenue intersection, also known as 3850 North Ramsey. I move that we approve this based on the following findings. Justification for the decision is relied upon through B1 through B7 items, and pursuant to section 17.09, the point B8 is the special use permit criteria may be approved only if the proposal conforms to all the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. B8A, the proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan as a neighborhood service node. B8B, the design and planning of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. Though it is a single-use server, it is a very narrow marketplace, and I think that as we acknowledge, there's a limited access points to put this monopile in place. The B8C, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. And since this is a low-traffic use and with one service trip a month, it's not really a traffic issue. It's more like virtual traffic through the air and into this and out of this monopine. And the chances for it to be used is also reducing by adding that 10 feet. We've now reduced the chances of yet another one of these occurring somewhere in the near future. And in conclusion, and the note is that the Planning Commission, pursuant to the aforementioned, finds that the request of Verizon Wireless for a special use permit as described in the application should be approved with the following special conditions. And I think we're all in agreement that one, the monopine design of some stealth look is what we would go for. And we do not want to see the simple post there that's shown in this current proposal. The project must adhere to the site and landscaping plans. And also the proposed access road must be engineered to meet an imposed maximum load of 75,000 pounds. And that this access must have a maintenance plan to include snow removal and storage. And that 5, there are signs stating no parking, fire lane, and that shall be posted along the access road for the fire department. I think that's it, isn't it? Did I get it all?
Have a first, need a second?
Second?
Okay. We have first by Fleming, second by Lutrip. Shannon, roll call?
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
Lutrip.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Best of luck. And hope we see a nice tree out there. Okay, we have the next item, which is ZC 1-17, zone change from light manufacturing to a C17. Okay, Mike?
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a public hearing for item ZZ-1-17, application by Confluent Development LLC requesting a zone change from light manufacturing to C17 on property located at 505 West Kathleen Avenue. legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on April 22nd, 2017, and all of the required notifications have been made. As you can see, this is a location map indicating where this property is located within the city. This is US Highway 95, this is Kathleen, and this is the county fairgrounds, kind of just give you a location where it's situated in the city. Prior to 1983, this part of this property was located in the unincorporated area in the county, and in 1983, the city annexed 680 acres in conjunction with zoning, and this property has been zoned that way since 1983. As you can see, that this part of the red part is the full property, and the yellow part is the property under question today as far as what is to be rezoned. This part of the property is 11.2 or 3 acres that is zoned C17, and this 4.1 acres is zoned the light manufacturing. And the applicant's intent is to have zoning throughout the whole property. It currently has split zoning. Here's a bird's eye view of the property. You can see this is the property in question for the zone change. This is 95 and this is Kathleen. This is looking north. This is 95 Kathleen, and this is the building supply facility. And the property highlighted in yellow is for the zone change. Here's the applicant's exhibit showing the C17 and where this requested zone change is at. And there are 4 findings that need to be met in order for a zone change to be approved. And the first finding is finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan indicates this area is in the US 95 corridor, which indicates business and commercial uses within this area. It's also in the transitional area, and transitional areas are areas that will change over time. This slide indicates 3 comprehensive plan objectives as it relates to this zone change request. The full list is on page 7 of your staff report. The first one is Objective 1.12, Community Design. Objective 1.14 is Efficiency. And Objective 3.16, Ensure infrastructure and essential services are available for properties in the development. Finding B9, that public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. This application has been routed to the various city departments, and each department has indicated that there are adequate facilities and public utilities available to serve the proposed request. The full comments are on page 8 of your staff report. Finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. The site is generally flat with an approximate 15-foot drop in elevation towards the north and west part of the property. There are no topographical or physical constraints that would make the subject property unsuitable to change the zoning from light manufacturing to C17. Here's a topographic map indicating the topography on the property, and each white line indicates a 5-foot change in elevation. And you can see this is where the elevation kind of drops on this property. Here's some site photos of the property. This is looking south along the front of the building. This is looking north. This is looking west through the vacant part of the property. This is standing on the northwest corner of the property, looking southeast through the property. And this is at that same corner, looking south through the property. The last finding is finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. The city engineer has indicated that the change from light manufacturing to C17 zone use at this location is expected to be minor in terms of the amount of traffic that is generated. The zoning map indicates the commercial zoning to the east and to the south, and C17L across 95, and then the light manufacturing to the west. The proposed C17 district is intended as a broad spectrum commercial district that should be located adjacent to our arterials. However, joint access developments are encouraged. Here's a list of few of the principal uses that are permitted in the C17 district. The full list is on page 14 and 15 of your staff report. I won't read them all, but I'll just read a couple of them. Banks and financial institutions, commercial kennel, department stores, hospitals, hotels, mini storage facilities, veterinary office. Zone changes through time. In 1984, there was a zone change from R12 to C17L. That was approved, and in 1998, was the same thing from R12 to C17L, and that was approved in that time. And then in 1999, this property right here was proposed from light manufacturing to C-17, and that was approved in 1999. And the most recent one was in 2008 from light manufacturing to C-17. It's a land use map indicating the land uses that surround this property are mostly commercial. This is the vacant part, this color right here, and this is the school located to the south at the civic color. The decision point tonight before you is a zone change. Provide a recommendation to the City Council regarding the proposed zone change from light manufacturing to C-17 on approximately 4.1 acres. You will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. That concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant's also here to make a brief presentation as well.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions? Okay, great, thanks.
Good evening, Commissioner Messina, fellow.
Name, address, and I'll swear you in.
Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, 126 East Poplar Avenue in the great city of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
First off, congratulations, Tom, on being elected chairman, and thank you for your service as well. I'm going to pull up my presentation if I can. So here tonight, as Mike had said, we're asking for a zone change, light manufacturing to commercial. The property is currently the stock building lumber yard there at the intersection of Kathleen and 95. It's actually 505 West Kathleen Avenue. The proponent is Confluent Development. They are a corporation out of Denver, Colorado. They do a lot of commercial redevelopment and industrial redevelopment. They also do a lot of senior projects nationwide. They're a fairly large firm. They discovered this property, and they're currently under contract to purchase the property. So again, here is the subject property. The total acreage in the property is just about 16 acres. Only about 4 acres of it is zoned light manufacturing. The rest of it is actually zoned C-17. And as Mike had described, the split zoning came into effect, I think you said 1983. That's correct. So it's been split zoned for quite some time. We'd like to clean it up, obviously, and get it all zoned C-17. So same map Mike had shown. The gray is the light manufacturing. The light red is the commercial. So we want to change that to commercial is what we're asking, so that the entire parcel outlined in black there is zoned C-17. And Mike touched on this, so I'm going to touch a little bit on it. Idaho code, as you guys know, says that you have to make express standards and findings in order to approve a zone change or really any land use decision for that matter. So Coeur d'Alene has come up with their findings as is in your staff report and as Mike had discussed. The first three, I think, are very straightforward, and Mike went through them and they're covered in detail in the staff report. I really wanted to discuss the last one just a little bit. Finding B11 is that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood as it relates to traffic, neighborhood character, and existing land uses. So the map that I've got up there now is the land use pattern. So it's not necessarily zoning, but it's what the land is currently being used at. So you can see everything in red is commercial. So the property really is surrounded entirely by commercial. The white vanilla color that you see here is actually vacant land. It's the vacant portion of that property. And again, here is the zoning map. So with that regards, yes, we are in conformance and we do match the surrounding neighborhood characters and existing land uses. And again, as it relates to traffic, we're at the intersection of a state highway and a major arterial. So ideally the perfect place for commercial property. So any questions for me?
Questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
I have one person that signed up, Drew. Oh,
He is
that was him. I'm sorry, Drew. Sorry. I guess you don't have to rebuttal yourself, so I take it public hearing is closed. And staff, commissioners, if I have a motion, discussion, go ahead, John.
Seeing as how there's so much opposition and this one is so controversial, I would think I could float a motion just running through. It wouldn't be a waste of time maybe to run through the findings in case it flies, but So I'll take a stab at the findings in support of this as a matter that came before us tonight for a zone change from LM Light Manufacturing to C17 zoning for confluent development on the 4.1 acre parcel located at 505 West Kathleen Avenue. Proposed that we adopt those findings that are stated as facts as B1 through B7, and that B8, we make a finding that this is in a conformance with the comp plan based on the staff comments in the staff report as well as the testimony that, this indeed is an area in transition. We've seen some of these parcels convert around it to C17 in the past, and that I think this is a great opportunity to make efficient use of existing city services, which is 4.02. 2.02 talks about jobs and commercial expansion. 2.01 in the comp plan talks about supporting commercial expansion without detriment to surrounding neighborhoods, so it really touches on that one well. Touches on 1.14, efficient use of existing infrastructure. So I think this one shores up nicely with the comp plan. Skipping along to B9, that the facilities are indeed available to support this zone change, and that's basically the summation of all of the staff departments' comments saying that utilities are there, traffic impact should be minimal and such, water, sewer, all that good stuff is there. B10, the physical characteristics of the site make it suitable based on what we see here before us, what the testimony is. Pretty straightforward, flat site with no physical constraints. And finally, B11, that the proposal would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood, again, based on, the assessment that the zone change would be a minimal traffic impact. And the compatibility is, I think, also reflected in the fact of what we see. Some of these parcels have changed to C17 over the years. The split zoning thing is just an odd duck that needs cleaning up. And the fact that I made light of the fact that there isn't a whole bunch of adverse testimony, I think is revealing that this is probably fairly compatible. So with that, I would make the bottom line punchline here that this matter that has come before us for confluent development for the zone change be approved.
Okay, got a first? Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. We have a first by Engel, second by Fleming. Roll call, Shannon?
Fleming?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
Mandel? Yes. Lutrip?
Yes,
Okay. Item ZC-1-17 is approved. Congratulations. Thank you. Best of luck. Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. Time goes very fast, because it seems like just the other day, we were talking about the other portion that was rezoned, and that was 2008.
Yeah,
And,
remember that.
yes.
Chairman,
Yes.
I got one more comment, if I could, a comment and a question and a comment. First, welcome Commissioner Mendel.
Thank you.
Good to have you on board here. Congratulations, Chairman Messina.
Thank you very much.
You do a great job. And the question was, how many years you mentioned Brad Jordan was recognized at the last council meeting for his service. How many years? It was a big number.
30.
30 years. So I'd just like to point out,
You were
Good luck
probably-
with
you were
that.
probably still in school.
Good luck.
Brad and I are almost the same age. But he's been up here his whole life, basically, is what I'm saying. But I'd like to point out, and just in the slight chance that Brad's watching tonight, you never know. I hope he's gone on to do better things with his life. But But, you know, add me to the list of folks that, you know, 30 years, my goodness, I salute you, I tip my hat to you, 30 years of service. You know, we were joking after the council meeting that, you know, he's not walking out of here with a big briefcase of money. As the folks up on this dais know, this comes with no pay, no health insurance, no nothing, no nothing.
Good food.
We get a little snack, and that's that. So, you know, the reason he did it for 30 years is because he cares about his community, and 30 years of caring is a lot of caring. So, thank you, Brad.
I totally agree with that. Thank you. And Brad was a great inspiration to me, and believe it or not, I learned quite a bit from him and stuff. So I hope I can, like I say, do as good a job as. I don't know about 31 years being here. I might not be able to see you walk at that time, but we'll never know. I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I move to adjourn.
I have a motion. Need a second.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Okay.